Yo, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen? And welcome back to Let's Talk Comics. I know I've kind of been very iffy with my scheduling. My actual daytime job has been very, very busy for the last little while, so my scheduling has been absolutely screwed on when I can upload, but I am trying to work my way into getting back and doing this a lot more often because I really do enjoy making this content. But as y'all can see from the title, today we're going to be tackling one of the biggest questions in Marvel. Who would win a fight between Peter Parker Spider-Man and Miles Morales Spider-Man? It's a debate that I honestly feel often divides fans across every generation due to the fact that these two are more than just Spider-Man. They are the cultural icons representing the different eras of heroism and honestly the different eras of comic book fans in as a whole. But in all fairness, like if we're just talking about this in like a head-to-head showdown, who do you honestly think would come out on top? And we're not just comparing powers, we're diving into their fighting styles, personalities, and even their psychological approaches to being Spider-Man. So buckle up because this is going to be one wild ride through the Spider-Verse. All right, so the first thing that we're obviously just going to be talking about is just, Peter Parker as a whole. And if we're just getting started with that, we start off with him, the man who first donned the red and blue suit back in 1962. Peter is the Spider-Man that basically everyone grew up with. He is the everyman hero, the underdog who consistently rises up and makes his way through impossible odds. But what really makes Peter Parker such a dangerous opponent in a fight? One word: experience. Peter Parker has been swinging around in New York City for decades, fighting a rogues gallery that includes some of the most dangerous villains in the Marvel Universe. We're talking about people like Doc Ock, Green Goblin, the symbiote menace of Venom, and so many others. Peter's fought gods, aliens, and even other superheroes, and his combat experience is almost so completely unparalleled. He has learned from every battle, adapting his style and improving his strategies. When it comes to outsmarting his enemies, Peter is honestly quite the closest thing that we can really get to a very masterful tactician, and his ability to think on his feet is what has kept him alive in situations where he's been clearly outmatched. But it's just not about his brains. Peter's spidey sense is also one of his greatest assets. This is a heightened sense that allows him to detect danger before it happens, and almost everybody obviously knows what spidey sense is. It's one of his very big qualifying factors. One of the main abilities that every Spider-Man fan knows about going into the gate and like going like just straight out the gate. It's an ability that gives him the split-second reactions to dodge bullets, punches, and even energy blast. While it's not foolproof, Peter's spidey sense can make him incredibly hard to hit. In fact, it's probably one of his greatest defense mechanisms in any fight. And there's also Peter's superhuman strength, which obviously would be a normal common factor, which we've seen Peter be able to lift cars, trucks, and even entire buildings depending on like the very big desperate situations. His physical strength far exceeds that of any normal humans, and he's taken punches from the Hulk and walked away. If this fight came down to brute strength alone, Peter would most likely have the upper hand against Miles. Combine that with his acrobatic agility and his web swinging abilities, Peter's would become an incredibly difficult opponent to pin down. But Peter isn't just a brawler. He's a genius with an IQ that rivals some of the brightest minds in the entirety of the Marvel Universe. His web shooters, for example. While obviously he doesn't always use web shooters, depending on the like variation and iteration of the character, are a product of his own engineering. Over the years, he's modified them to include different types of webbing, like taser webs, web bombs, or even acid-resistant webbing. Peter's ability to create new gadgets and weapons on the fly gives him a very significant edge in almost any singular fight. Now, let's talk about the new kid on the block, Miles Morales. He may be younger, but don't let his age fool you. Miles is every bit as capable as Peter, and in some ways, he might be even more better suited for combat. Miles debuted in 2011 and has quickly become a fan favorite. Why? Because he brings a fresh perspective into the Spider-Man legacy. But how does he stack up against Peter in a fight is really the main question that we're going to have to be asking. First off, Miles has something that Peter doesn't. The Venom Blast ability. This Bioshock can create, just basically incapacitate enemies with a touch. It is powerful enough to take down enemies far stronger than Miles himself, and gives him a massive advantage in hand-to-hand combat. The Venom Blast can neutralize Peter's physical strength and rendering him very vulnerable to follow attacks. Imagine Peter just closing in for a punch only to be stopped with a singular shock from Miles. It is a very big game changer. Then there's also Miles' specific ability to be able to turn invisible. And this isn't just camouflage, it's full-on invisibility. In the heat of battle, even Miles' specifically ability to be able to do this would just be a very, very big, bright side. This ability just allows Miles to vanish from sight, reposition and land sneaky attacks that Peter wouldn't be able to truly see coming even with his spider sense. Peter would have a very hard time tracking Miles once he disappears, and this abilities would make Miles a little more unpredictable, which really would just give him a huge advantage in almost any fight. He can strike from the shadows, keep his enemies guessing, and use the element of surprise to his advantage. Physically, though, Miles is incredibly agile, even more so than Peter. His youth gives him levels of speed and flexibility that Peter would normally be able to struggle to keep up with. While Peter has the strength advantage, and I honestly do think that he does, Miles' agility and speed makes him for a little more of a difficult target. And in a fight where mobility is the key, Miles could most likely easily outmaneuver somebody like Peter, especially in a battle that takes place in an environment like a heavily populated and densely populated urban area or a confined space. Lastly, let's not forget Miles' tech. While he doesn't have the years of experience that Peter has, Miles has been learning quickly. His web shooters are advanced, and he has shown a willingness to experiment with different types of webbing and gadgets. Plus, he's got access to a lot of the modern technology that Peter didn't have access to when he first started out. Miles' combination of raw power, agility, and innovation makes him a far more dangerous opponent and unpredictable fighter. Now, the next thing that I honestly want to talk about is their fighting styles and strategy. When comparing these two Spider-Men, their fighting styles are where we see the most significant differences. Peter Parker, the original Spider-Man, fights with a combination of brawling and tactical thinking. He has had years to refine his styles, learning from every encounter with villains, as I've already said, like Doc Ock. I think villains like the Sandman, and even somebody like Kingpin. Peter doesn't rely solely on his strength. He uses his environment, his intelligence, and his web shooters to gain the upper hand. His style is calculated, almost methodical, and he's always one step ahead, analyzing his opponent's weaknesses and waiting for them to make any kind of mistake so he can have the perfect moment to strike. Miles, on the other hand, is more of an instinctual fighter. His youth and inexperience lead him to take risks that Peter might avoid, but this also makes him a little more unpredictable. Miles' fighting style is fast, aggressive, and often relies on his unique abilities like the Venom Blast and his invisibility to kind of compensate for a couple other things. He's quick to improvise, often using his speed and agility to overwhelm his opponents before they even have the chance to react. This reckless approach might seem like a disadvantage, but in reality, it keeps his enemies off balance, making it even harder for them to be able to predict his next move. When these two go head to head, the experience that Peter's tactical mindset would be pitted against Miles's unpredictability and raw power, it's just really a clash of brains versus instinct, strategy versus spontaneity, which really could be a very interesting thing to see in almost specifically any actual specific ways. Now, obviously, we're going to have to talk about, specifically in my head, what I think are some very specific fight scenarios. And let's break some of those down, where Peters and Miles might face off. If this battle were to take place on something like the rooftops of New York City, Peters' experience in navigating the city's landscape might give him the slight advantage, but because, well, he knows every inch of Manhattan and his ability to use the environment to his advantage would give him the edge. Like, imagining Peter just using his webbing to, like, swing between buildings, leading Miles into a trap where he can web him up before landing a decisive blow. But if the fight happens in close quarters, let's say a tight alley or underground, Miles would most likely just dominate. His invisibility and Venom Blast, which I've already mentioned quite a few times, would make it almost impossible for Peter to just absolutely just easily land a hit. Miles would disappear into the shadows and only reappear with a paralyzing Venom Blast, and in these conditions, Peter's spidey sense would most likely struggle to keep up, and he would be forced to kind of fight defensively in this kind of battle. In a long range battle, like, Peter's web shooters and gadgets would give him the advantage, and he could use his various types of webbing to create the distance between him and Miles, trapping him and slowing him down with his impact webs. But once Miles closes the gap, as I said, this would kind of be the true way to be able to determine a winner. But in all fairness, who do I think would win? And there is just really a couple of ways for me to say this. So, who would really win in a fight between Peter and Miles? In my opinion, while Peter definitely has the edge in experience, like I've already said, Miles simply brings too much firepower to the table. Peter's seasoned and resourceful, no doubt, but Miles possesses a set of abilities that just make him a real wild card. Something Peter just hasn't faced in another Spider-Man. And let me specifically break down exactly why Miles would come out on top in this match. Obviously, first we have to just talk again about his unique abilities. The Venom Blast being an absolute game changer, and being able to like paralyze his opponents, but also being strong and to take down enemies far more powerful than him, is just way too much of an advantage. Think about it for a second. Spider-Man has fought against countless villains over the years, but none of them had been able to actively had an attack that could actively incapacitate him or be able to deliver the knockout blow. Imagine Peter just getting hit with a blast that is not only being able to stun him, but completely shuts down his ability to move and even think for a brief moment. This is just an opening that Miles would be able to use and land very devastating follow-ups. And then again, there's the fact that he can turn invisible. This would just really just give him way too much of a massive tactical advantage over Peter. Peter's spidey sense might be one of his greatest and strongest tools in any fight, along with any Spider-Man, as everybody just knows automatically. But even Spider sense has its limits, and it's never been able to really had to deal with somebody who can literally disappear in the middle of a battle. Peter would be trying to figure out where Miles has vanished to, and Miles could use this time to reposition and just create the surprise attack, like I've already actively fully said. And combine that invisibility with any of his other abilities would just be an absolute lethal combo that Peter simply does not have an answer for. And it's not only the power difference here, it's the matter of unpredictability and the fact that Miles can fight in a way that Peter would just not really be able to experience. Yes, Peter has fought against other Spider-Men from other universes a couple different times before, but this is somebody that has spent quite so much time with him. Like, this is somebody that spends a lot of his time with Peter. Somebody that Peter has basically trained up a little bit by quite a while, and has been able to learn, grow, and actually see what Peter has been able to do. Yes, so they know quite a bit about each other, and they know each other's great strengths and weaknesses, and will be able to exploit that on both ends. But again, Miles' youth and agility would also play a crucial role. Peter, like, while Peter has the wisdom of years and experience, there's just something to be said about raw athleticism and agility of someone who's still fresh to the game. Miles is constantly adapting, learning new ways to use his power, and is able to think on his feet, meaning that, he could quickly shift strategies in a fight. Peter's approach to a fight is usually grounded in what he's worked with before, and Miles is still experiencing and exploring the full potential of his abilities, and that's truly what makes him so unpredictable. At the end of the day, Miles isn't just fighting to prove himself as a Spider-Man. He's fighting to prove and eventually become better than Peter Parker in any way. I'm not even joking. Me and a couple of my friends at work were discussing, like, being like a mentor and a mentee relationship. The true drive of that isn't always just, oh, I want to be just like you. It's, I want to surpass you. I want to take all of the advice that you've taught me and put it to use and make it better in any specific way. This hunger and this drive is kind of what would mainly drive a good portion of people, and Miles is one of those people. He's got the hunger, he's got the drive, and he's got the motivation to push himself further than Peter ever needed to. The ambition alone gives him the edge. While Peter's journey is about responsibility, Miles is more about carving out his own destiny, his own place as a Spider-Man. Yes, the responsibility is always going to be a key factor of any Spider-Man due to the fact that they all have something that they've been needing to be responsible for, but that kind of personal motivation makes him a very formidable opponent in ways that Peter, who has already been established as a hero for so long, might underestimate. In the grand scheme of things, Peter will always be the original Spider-Man, but when it comes down to a head-to-head fight, Miles is an absolute powerhouse. His homemade and his custom abilities that are specifically aligned towards him and his evolving skills make him a very dominant force. Peter may have the heart of a hero, but in this case, I honestly feel like Miles would have the absolute upper hand, and when it's all said and done, I don't really believe that it would be a very close fight at all. Yes, I have made a couple excuses for Peter, saying that if these specific circumstances, he would most likely be able to win, but that was just mainly just be having still the absolute respect for somebody like Peter. The respect for somebody of his specific caliber, and honestly one of my favorite superheroes in general. But in all fairness, me saying that Peter is stronger than Miles is just honestly speculation in my own head. But in all fairness, it really could go either way, whether if about him being stronger or Miles being stronger, because they both have shown the abilities and shown the absolute strength that has qualified them to, be Spider-Man. So that could just be going in any specific different way anybody said. So you guys could honestly just go down and tell me in the comments below of who you guys think would win, and if you guys just think that I'm bugging. If you guys think that Miles wouldn't be able to beat Peter, or if you guys think that Peter is just way too strong and all of that. If you guys do think that Miles would be able to beat Peter, comment down below too, because you guys are just going to be boosting me up a little bit and telling me that, I'm correct in my assumptions and everything like that. But if you guys did enjoy this video, please make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you guys can get caught up with all the latest videos that I do be posting. As I've already said, I know my schedule has been a little hectic, but I am going to try getting at least a couple more videos out a little more often. Give me about a week, maybe two at most, and I should be trying to get back into doing at least a couple videos per week if I can. But with all of that said and done, I hope you guys did enjoy this video, honestly, and please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, all the things that I've already said before, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.